Earlier this week, we asked you to tell us the last physical copy of a PC game you bought while sharing our own choices. Today, as a kind of sequel to that question, we ask, what was the first downloadable game you bought on PC, in the PC Gamer queue? We'll also feature a few answers from the PC Gamer Club Discord, accessible to anyone who's a part of our membership program. You'll find our answers below, and we'd love to hear what your first paid downloadable game was too. Jared Walton, Half-Life 2. I'll take the easy route on this one, because it's also true. Half-Life 2 was the first downloadable game one bought. I also played Counter-Strike 1.6 on the platform, including using the Steam beta, but that was a mod for Half-Life, so I didn't pay for it. Anyway, HL2 required Steam, so what else was I going to do? I'm old enough that having a credit card and high-speed internet back in 2004 wasn't a problem, and I was luckier than some, in that Steam worked basically without a hitch for me. Sure, there were a few outages, but I don't recall them ever really affecting me. I played, and benchmarked, Half-Life 2 all the way to the end in the first week or so after its release, and I thought the convenience of downloading a game was pretty awesome. Others hated the idea, but I don't think any of us could have guessed how huge Steam would become over the next decade. It went from a place where you bought Valve games and maybe a few others, to eventually becoming the virtual storefront for 95% of all the games I own. No wonder EA, Ubisoft, and Activision want a piece of that pie. I kept buying boxed copies of games for ages because slow Australian internet made downloading them a hassle, until I got into small indie games that wouldn't bust my data limit. The first was Uplink, which let me live out the fantasy of being an elite computer hacker and also the fantasy of having really fast internet. It's designed to make you feel like you're in the movie Sneakers, and for a while it did. Like every other hacking game I've tried, games like Hack and Slash, and else. Heartbreak, it eventually started to feel like work instead of fun. Now, when I want to pretend I'm a hacker, I just go to hackertyper.net. What it did get me into was playing more small, personal projects, and I found plenty of those to love. The next two are Atom Zombie Smasher and Audiosurf, both of which became favorites. Samuel Roberts, Audiosurf. Right when rhythm action games were blowing up on console, but tended to focus on guitar music that I didn't really like and plastic controllers that took up way too much space in a single person's bedroom. A friend explained how there was a rhythm action game where you could play your own songs. The novelty of this was huge to me. I was 20 at the time, working on a PlayStation magazine, and I didn't really have the cash for a good PC, having wasted hundreds of pounds on a PS3 I needed for work, which broke a year later. Sigh. At least I got to play Uncharted, I suppose. Eventually, my parents bought me an oakish laptop, and one of the first things I did was download Audiosurf on Steam. It was pretty amazing, to upload my favorite tracks into the game and to have so many cool and challenging ways to play them, along with leaderboards. This was one of the first PC games of the modern era that really showed me why playing on PC was better, both in terms of the variety of games available, and the experiences that only PC could give you. If I wanted to play the theme tune from Max Payne 2 in a rhythm action game, I could do it. Damn it, now I own close to 1,000 games across Steam, GOG, Uplay, Battle.net and Origin, and I don't know why I've done that to myself. James Davenport, Sin Episode S. Remember the short-lived Sin Episodes reboot? I can't remember why I chose to make that my first digital purchase rather than, say, Half-Life 2, but it was. It was this whole ordeal. I didn't have a credit card and Steam bucks weren't really a thing back then, so I went to a friend's house. "Hey, Anton, I'll find that copy of Kingdom Hearts and return it as soon as I can," just to ask their older sister to let me use hers. Digital game marketplaces were a new concept back then, and she didn't play many games anyway, so it 100% came off as a con. Your little brother's good friend rolls in with wearing the edgiest Linkin Park t-shirt he could find at Goodwill, then asks, under his breath, to borrow your credit card to purchase something from Steam called Sin. My ma had just started preaching at the local Presbyterian church and everyone knew it, so the look Anton's sister threw my way had me worried her eyes might pop out. Not sure why she agreed in the end, but thanks, Roxy. Only had dial-up internet at the time, so my parents paid for it next with a phone line that wouldn't put a call through for a day or two. And when I finally played episode 1, the only episode ever released, I remember feeling like all the trouble was worth it. The novelty of a game floating somewhere in the ether that I could call mine and play from any computer was incredibly empowering. Bit of a shit game, but Sin Episode 1 got me hooked on Steam, and set me right in the path of innumerable indie games I would have missed otherwise. Phil Savage, Prey, the original owned. Spent most of my 2000s dealing with a laptop that became too hot to handle after just 20 minutes of command. As such, the advent of Steam passed me by. If it wasn't a sedate isometric strategy game or RPG, I wasn't prepared to suffer the third-degree burns required to play it. In 2008 though, I got a real job and saved enough money to buy a desktop PC. I downloaded Steam, fully intending to finally play Half-Life 2. Instead, I ran face first into a Steam sale. Prey was on offer for about £3. I didn't know what it was, or if it was any good, but at that price how could I not immediately buy it? It was good. Prey is far from amazing, but if you don't know any better, for instance if you hadn't played an FPS since Quake because your last decade had been spent ordering many sprites to give many orcs in the various Infinity Engine RPGs, it looked spectacular. I also bought Audiosurf on the same day, because everyone bought Audiosurf in 2008. Chris Livingston, Half-Life 2, probably. My Steam purchase history only goes back to 2007 for some reason, but I have to assume it was Half-Life 2. I remember staying up late to unlock it. It launched fine, and I remember seeing those Combine Metro cops walking around on the menu screen. Instead of playing, though, I decided to change a couple graphics options, and then had to restart. And that's when Steam completely tanked. I couldn't get back in. I missed my window to play a game I'd been waiting years for, and after about 3 hours of not being able to connect, I just had to give up and go to sleep because I had work in the morning. I'm sure glad that 15 years later games no longer have launch day issues. The PC Gamer Club we got a few answers from the club Discord, so thanks all who responded. I'm pretty sure my first digital game was Mass Effect 1. A podcast I listened to at the time was always saying how amazing Commander Shepard was, so I finally tried it out. As far as I can remember, it would be the orange box, says user Buttface Jones in Discord. I had played PC games before TOB, like Quake, Command & Conquer, and WoW, but always from a disc. I bought TOB on Xbox, and fell in love with TF2, despite how bad and limited the Xbox version was. I eventually got fed up and downloaded Steam specifically to play the real TF2, user Butts says Gary's Mod on Steam. Ember ads, Orange Box in 2008 for me, fellow user Erdelf ads, Stargate Resistance. Honestly, before that I bought games in the store or played F2P online games. Let us know the first downloadable game you bought below.